I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things. Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. Think about it. The most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing. The show goes on!
It's Wednesday night and fantasy football is on the agenda. Grab a seat and let's get down to business. It's time for the Fantasy Boardroom. Here's your host, Tycoon.
And welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom. I am your host and fantasy CEO, Tycoon. Tonight, the hits keep on coming. We've got another gem of a guest here this evening. It is one of our newest members of the Fantasy Collective. He is the co-founder, columnist, podcaster, and senior editor of In Between Media. He is co-founder of 32 and 32 with his wife, Jen. He is co-host of Coming Off the Edge and, of course, columnist for the Fantasy Collective. Shout out Dynasty Sweet Spot. All-around good guy, Mr. Nate Polvogt. Nate,
what's up?
Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me, man. I've wanted to come on the show for a while, and when you asked me, I was really stoked. Stoked to be here. Sorry I was running late.
No, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled you decided to say yes, and nobody knew you were late until now, so way to blow the cover.
There you go. I always do it to myself, man.
Life happens. What can you say?
It does indeed.
So, before we really jump into it, just want to make another quick collective announcement, and that is we do have another outstanding addition to, tell you about, and that is the addition of the Christensen brothers, the brothers of Dynasty, Jay, Josh, and Drew Christensen. So, welcome aboard, boys. I was lucky enough to join them on their show a couple of weeks ago. Outstanding episode, NFC West preview. Go back and check it out. But it's another great addition to the collective network, and we're thrilled to have them aboard. So go check them out.
Awesome.
So as we approach week 1 next week, we're heading into the final weekend before, the first game kicks off. So this is draft weekend. This is Labor Day weekend. This is draft weekend. So we're getting ready. We're making final preparations. That's what today is all about. That's what the rest of this week is all about. Getting ready to get a leg up on your league mates. So that's where we're going to go with this. And now, since we have Nate here for the first time, we're going to get to know him a little bit. Now, anybody who is a follower here of the collective, you'll probably got a chance to see him with Shane on Collective Knowledge, so you might know a little bit about him. And for those that don't, we're going to give you a little quick summary. So, Nate.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me just a very brief history of In Between Media and why you started it? Why does it exist?
So, I actually did not start In Between Media.
Oh, that's right.
We did. It's fine. So, basically what happened was the pandemic happened, and I had been on Twitter for years and was using it for fantasy sports analysis, but also just general news. I found it a really good source to get quick breaking news. My feed got really toxic, so I deleted my old Twitter account, started a complete new one. It's I'm just focusing on sports. And I somehow found this fantasy football community, and I'm not quite sure how I found it. Didn't know it was a thing. Started following people like Troy King, who was not much bigger than me at the time. Obviously, he has exploded and is doing amazing, and I'm so happy for him because he's an amazing person. Like John Helmkamp, Nate Hamilton, some of those people, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And I see this tweet come across my feed, and it's, "Hey, my company's looking for writers," and it was from Seth Woolcock. It's you know what? It's June. It's a pandemic. I literally have nothing else to do. We can't even leave our house except to pick up groceries that get delivered to the back of our car. I'm gonna shoot a DM to him. It's the first DM I'd ever sent on Twitter. His response was the first DM I ever received on Twitter. We set up a phone call. I had never written anything before. He just had this vision of something that sounded. I liked the idea of combining talking about my life as a parent, as a human, and getting to talk about fantasy football really appealing. And once I started writing for him, Seth and I became really close, and I just got really involved in the business end of it and running things. And then my wife got involved in it. I remember the conversation. Seth and I had kind of taken up to these Friday night phone calls where we started talking fantasy. And then we just kind of talked about like our week and our life and our families. And Jen was always a part of those. And we find ourselves on the phone with him for like 4.5 hours on a Friday. Like we're up until 1 a.m. Mountain time. He's in Pennsylvania. So like 2 a.m. his time. And one night he just says, "Hey, Jen, are you in?" She's like, "Sure." And she started writing.
I love it.
She's now our business manager. Seth is obviously the CEO and chief editor. I run all the social media stuff with a lot of help from Scott Rainier, who you know is at Munder Difflin FF. And now we're here. Not somewhere I thought I would have been. If you would have asked me a little over a year ago, I told you you're crazy. There's no way I'd be doing any of this.
No, the whole in-between team is awesome, and you guys are doing a great job, and that's honestly the best thing about what you guys do, the blending of life and sports talk. It's not just another version of somebody trying to copy ESPN, for instance, or
right.
Yahoo Fantasy Pros, whatever it may be. So it is refreshing. It's in a space that's hard to be unique. You seem to have struck a little bit of a chord.
Well, thank you, and the credit goes to Seth.
Like
Seth
I said, is awesome.
He was a journalism major in college. He started this in college. Had the pandemic come, it wouldn't have come full circle, obviously, and I think that's for a lot of us. Without having that forced downtime to actually have time to pursue something that we maybe enjoyed more than what we were doing on a day-to-day basis before. And it's really neat to see the explosion of different content, like what the collective is doing. And that's why I wanted to be a part of what you guys are doing. It's different. It's fun. It's informative. And it's not ESPN and it's not Yahoo.
We already have that. That gets boring. That gets old. The only way to keep things fresh is to, do that quite literally. Keep things fresh.
Yep, exactly.
Well, and in that spirit, before we jump into it, I want to ask you one more question. Now, Why do you play fantasy football?
Well, I play it because I enjoy it. I like feeling involved in the game. Like it's a little bit more than just watching football on Sundays. And while that's awesome and everything, and I love the sport, but playing fantasy ties you into the game a little bit more, I feel like. It's forced me to be, as you may have noticed, I'm which way is it? Broncos fan. But like anymore, I'm just I don't hate the Raiders like I used to anymore. I'm supposed to.
It does kill the hate.
Does. It kills the hate, and I feel like I enjoy the game more playing fantasy. My dad introduced me to it when I was 10 in 1992. And since then, It's just been a fun way to be a part of the game on Sundays outside of just watching it.
Completely agree. And I mean, it never supersedes your own team's rooting interest, of course, but it's nice to have a little extra going
Unless
on.
It's championship weekend and your team is in last place already and you just don't care if they lose and you need someone else to score points for you.
Last place or locked up. Top position, resting guys, whatever it may be. Yeah, if it's an insignificant game, maybe you can allow for certain tweaks in your rooting.
Right.
Right. That's fine. That's fine. So, what's your favorite format of fantasy?
So, probably IDP.
Really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm fairly new to it. Last year was my first year playing IDP, but I fell in love with it. It makes you focus on the game a little bit more. And I'm a big defense guy. If I had played football, I wanted to be a cornerback or a safety, something in like that defensive back realm. So adding that element to fantasy football and then put it into a dynasty aspect, because there aren't a lot of redraft IDP leagues. I haven't found one. I'm not in one. But adding that component to dynasty, that long-term build, and the startup drafts for those are so fun because they're like 35 rounds.
Oh,
it never stops.
I've only done one IDP dynasty startup, and that was one of the hardest drafts I've ever been. I actually won that league the first year, but it was a challenge that I had not faced before because I had done only a couple. I'm not a big IDP guy myself, and they were redraft what I had done before. So throwing that dynasty aspect in there was, man, talk about Superflex adjusting strategy. Superflex Dynasty is a whole nother monster altogether.
Oh, it is. Actually, the first Dynasty
Superflex IDP Dynasty, sorry.
Oh, yes. No, I did one. That's okay. So the first Dynasty League I ever joined was an IDP Dynasty League, and this was last season. And Jen and I co-managed it, co-drafted, co-managed. We went to the championship in that league, and it was a 16-team Superflex IDP. So, I mean, the format was wild, and I don't know that we knew what we were doing, but we managed to make enough good moves during the season to keep afloat. And I think that's probably why it's my favorite, actually, now that I'm talking this out. That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, to have that kind of success first year in what felt so foreign going in.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, let's talk some actual football now. As alluded to earlier, we're going into draft weekend. We're here to help you make your final preparations so you can go into your drafts more prepared and with more knowledge than your league mates. Go take your family's money. Go take your coworkers' money. That's what we're here to help you do. Name of the game. So first things first, if you haven't kept up on the news, we have some very notable injuries as you go into your draft. Notable names such as Michael Thomas, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, and Travis Etienne are all injured, and outside of Michael Thomas, injured for the season. So not only remember to not draft those individuals, but remember that it has a ripple effect on those rosters, and it affects players like Marquez Callaway, Darrell Henderson, Sonny Michel, Gus Edwards, James Robinson. So that is the big news, the core news, and now we'll really dive in. First 4 rounds, Nate. For the most part, these are the big names, right? This is everybody kind of knows who these guys are. So I don't think we need to really take a deep dive into these rounds. People not only know who these players are, but tend to have preferences on these players. This is where a lot of favorite players are. Some skewed picks in this range for that reason. But I bring this up to focus on one thing, and that is who to avoid. So in that high pick range, and in particular, the first 2 rounds, that top 24 group of players, who should fantasy managers be wary of? Who are the landmines in that group?
So I'm not going to steal anybody from you because I know who you're after, and I completely agree with you. CEH is going way too high for me. I just don't. That system doesn't lend to a back like him being successful. And I mean, really, your top red zone targets are still Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. So, and Patrick Mahomes. I don't see him putting up the numbers to be even RB14, which is where he's currently being drafted at. But overall, 22. That's too early. That's too early, man. That's too early. That's way too early. I mean, outside of that, really, I think maybe Aaron Jones is being drafted a little bit too high. but I still can justify him going in those first 2 rounds.
Right.
I just think RB7 might be a little much for him.
I mean, he's been top 5 the last couple of years, right? So, I mean, I could see where that's coming from. I mean, don't always go off of past years, but...
Right. I don't know. I was low on him last year, too. I keep waiting for the well to dry up in Green Bay because it tends to happen there. And while there's a coaching change, still the same quarterback, still wants to wing the ball. And A.J. Dillon emerging scares me a little bit. I think he sniped some goal line work from Aaron Jones.
I think so, too.
We'll see how much. And we could be totally wrong. He may not. Yeah, but I mean, outside of that, Najee Harris maybe, just because he's a rookie, though I think his impact is going to be huge. But I'm just, I'm scared. I'm scared of drafting Najee Harris that high. Hi, Nick.
We also, what's
What
up,
up?
boys? All right, and well, for me, got 2 guys: Joe Mixon and DK Metcalf, both back-to-back Fantasy Pros consensus ADP here. 19 for Metcalf, 20 for Mixon. And Mixon, I feel like, is easy to explain. We've had 1 strong year from him, otherwise a lot of injury concerns, and even within the games he's played, it's a boomer bust kind of player. You know, you're either getting big games or you're getting nothing, if any, if he plays at all. So it's really a guy I've been burned by a couple of times, and in really bad ways. So, I mean, it is a little biased, but I just can't get on board with him. And I also think there's little evidence to justify drafting him 20th overall. I mean, in that same range, you got player Calvin Ridley, Darren Waller, even I would take CEH well before Mixon, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown. And in relation to those other receivers, same thing with DK. Not that he's not a good player, but we saw what happened to Seattle the second half of last year, and I know, new coordinator, blah, blah, blah. Russ, from game to game, tends to really key in on a player. And about half the time now, that's DK, but that's only about half the time. And with other options on the board, even going just outside the top 24 that you could take, again, like Justin Jefferson, like Calvin Ridley, like AJ Brown, all of whom I would take 10 times before I would ever, take DK at the end of the second. So,
yeah,
unless you can sell him to the Seahawk fan in your league for in a tremendous deal, because I did do that in one league. It worked out really well.
But the thing is that Seahawks fans are like, well, yeah, but there's Dwayne Eskridge, so.
No, there's not. I mean,
but
yes, there is.
But there is. He exists.
So, yeah, those are going to be the guys that I would suggest to avoid. I think Nate's also on point. So
more so with Mixon than Metcalf. But yeah, I can with Metcalf, I don't disagree. And I'm staying off of him that early.
I think he'll still be good. It's just top 24 with other options at that position, and even other strong running backs right in that spot. It's really hard for me to justify. It's about a round too high.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think I would take Keenan Allen over DK.
I would definitely.
I mean, that's
I
Allen
love
Robinson.
Keenan. Yes.
I mean,
I might even take Darnell Mooney over him.
Woo! All right, now we're talking. All right. Nate Polvogt with the spicy take here this evening. So we're going to build on that. This is the official take of 2021. This is actually the official in-between media take. Putting that out there. No, I'm just kidding.
I really love Darnell Mooney. But my brain has been clouded by Dynasty somewhat the last 6 months too. So keep that in mind.
Since I've gotten into Dynasty, I admit until really this year, my redraft passion, or not passion, but just activity has gone down. My mind has really warped towards Dynasty perspectives. So getting back into a lot of redraft drafts was a lot of mental retraining.
Yes. Yeah, Jen and I have talked about that. Dynasty brain.
Yeah, that is a thing.
Yeah, snap out of it. Got to start watching the fantasy shows on NFL Network to help. Thanks for laughing.
How do you not? All right. So, that's the basic early round. Now, what is really the key to your draft, in my opinion, is the middle rounds. This is where teams are often made or completely broken. The picks you make, rounds 5 through 8, where there's seemingly not a lot of variance, and in a sense, there isn't. But as the NFL year plays out, odd situations, injuries, etc., getting those picks is really important. Who gets them right is going to win the league.
Yeah,
it's not always just that waiver wire wonder or that late sleeper. It's typically how you construct your team in those rounds. So, just overarching question. I mean, do you have a typical strategy as you head into these middle rounds of your drafts? Do you attack it a certain way most of the time?
So I feel like there's a lot of middle round value. I try and get my running backs early because it's not nearly as deep. You start getting into the wide receivers in the middle rounds, and you're getting guys like Darnell Mooney, Michael Pittman, KJ Hamler, people like that who are wide receiver 2 technically in their system right now. With T.Y. Hilton, that's going to change a little bit how people view Pittman, but we also don't know how long he's going to be out, so maybe it won't. I'm a guy who thinks that Michael Pittman has top 10 overall wide receiver upside.
Okay.
With T.Y. Hilton out, I think he does. I said that a little more when I thought Phillip Rivers was still going to be the quarterback before he retired. But with Wentz, I don't hate it. I mean, we've seen Wentz be good.
He can push the ball a lot further
and
downfield.
He can. So I think there's a possibility you're getting Pittman in a mid-round ADP.
Yeah. Easy.
He's a guy who by the end of this
late round,
you're getting him close to late round. His current ADP right now in PPR is 108. So wide receiver 45. You've got guys like Curtis Samuel, Michael Gallup, I'm a big fan of. I think Marvin Jones is going to be better than people think, especially now that Colin Johnson got released in Jacksonville. I kind of pegged Colin Johnson to steal some touches from him, but now I don't. Targets, I don't think that's going to happen. Wide receiver is a good place to go middle round because, like I said, it's so deep. You're not going to get let's look at some running backs in those middle rounds that are still available that you probably don't want. Jamal Williams, that's a dart throw. Devin Singletary, David Johnson. We've got Sony Michel, and then Tony Pollard, Nyheim Hines. I like Nyheim Hines in those mid rounds, actually. I think that's kind of a value. I'm also very low on Jonathan Taylor, and he's not someone I'm touching, regardless of ADP.
Regardless of ADP, he can't drop far enough for you. Wow.
Well, I know that. Okay, so there's no way he's going to drop far enough for me to take him.
Okay.
There's no way. People are too hot on him.
Fair enough. I'm one of those people.
Good for you, man.
I love Jonathan Taylor. I mean,
I just don't see it.
If he wasn't, because I have an issue, championing a super popular player. I mean, I guess they're all popular, right? We're talking about NFL athletes.
Right.
But in the fantasy community, JT has been a thing for a minute now. So it would be his jersey instead of Swift's behind me if that hadn't happened on such a large scale in the fantasy world. Now, there's still enough Swift doubters that it's a lot more fun to proclaim this particular love.
I'm not saying anything about Jonathan Taylor's talent. I just don't see him getting used enough to justify his current ADP.
You think Mac's going to have a good role when he comes back?
I think
he is back, but I mean in season.
I'm leery about saying yes. He might. He's going to get carries, but I think Nyheim Hines is kind of the X factor here and how they use him in the passing game and don't use JT in the passing game because Nyheim Hines is going to get the receiving work. He showed last season why he should get the receiving work. So why would you give it to Jonathan Taylor when you have a guy who's already proven he's very talented? And I mean, Jonathan Taylor can catch the ball, but he's not Nyheim Hines. And you lose that receiving work in PPR leagues, which is what most of us play. That hurts. You want that running back with that PPR upside if you're getting them early. Guys like Kamara, Jones, Saquon, Derrick Henry, not so much, but a little. Dalvin Cook, a little. You want guys who are going to get some of that work for me, and I don't see Jonathan Taylor getting enough of it.
Very interesting.
I have weird opinions, man.
I mean, well, he had 36 receptions last year, and it was still basically the same situation. I mean, him and Hines, so that's still decent work. I mean, 300 yards.
That's not bad.
I mean, it was still, PPR running back 6 overall with that same setup. So
I know.
Do you think they're going to give Hines that much more receiving work? Oh, take that many of those 36 receptions?
With Carson Wentz?
I don't.
I think there's a possibility. We'll see. I could be completely wrong.
No, that's...
Ask my wife how often I'm wrong.
I haven't really thought about the Wentz factor for JT as much now that I think about it. But that's not what we're...
Right.
Talking
Yeah.
about right now.
Yes.
Get back to our middle rounds. So, all right. So mainly it sounds, as far as positions go, I mean, most of the value you're finding there is at the wide receiver position. And you kind of went over some of your favorites there, in those middle rounds. Now, as I thought about this question, I guess I leaned a little more towards the earlier side of the mid rounds, that kind of 5-6 round range.
Yeah, and I went back end of the mid.
Yeah.
So
hey, well, that works. We're covering all bases.
Exactly.
So as you kind of get out of that really elite tier, I do think there are a couple of players that fall just into that 5th round that I think are deserving to be more in that upper tier. And that would be Dak at quarterback. I am not all that concerned about the injuries. Some still are. I don't know. I rarely worry about injuries other than chronically, regularly injured players. I mean, stepping on the field is an injury risk. So, I don't worry about that too much or factor that in that much. And we saw what he was doing in those first 5 weeks last year before he was injured. And we know the talent that he has. We know the skill talent position that he's playing with. I mean, everything is there for him to be a top 5, top 3, even QB1 overall. And he's fallen down to QB7, 56 overall. Over my life, I've typically been a draft to QB late in 1 QB leagues, but I do think that's some really strong value with the upside that he presents. And when everybody else is attacking wide receiver here in these mid rounds or is going after a middling running back, I mean, this is where you grab yourself an elite QB at a discount price and get that little bit of an edge.
Yes.
I mean, will you be fine with Ryan Tannehill several rounds later? Of course you will be. But this is a way just to get those extra couple of points a week.
Yep.
And then,
I'm all in on Dak. So
yeah.
I'm with you 100%.
I love Dak this year. And Deontay Johnson at wide receiver is another guy that's slipping right there in the 5th round. And in PPR leagues, I think should be going a little earlier. I don't see, at least for this year, with Ben still there, much changing. I know Matt Canada is now the OC. And for some people, there's optimism about the offensive line. We've got the addition of Najee. But I don't see Ben at his age, with his current arm strength, getting too much away from that short passing game when he is airing the ball out. And he's still, even if they increase their rushing, I mean, he's still going to be throwing 35 times a game, it seems.
Yeah.
Like, at a minimum. So there's still going to be 8 to 10 going to Deontay at a minimum. So to me, target monster. I don't worry about drops. If he gets that many drops, it means he's still getting that many targets. Plenty of faith in him. And apart from the games where he had to leave in the first quarter due to injury, well, in the one that he did get benched for his drops, that was unfortunate. He just produces every single week. I mean, he's consistent. He's not going to give you that 40-point spike week, but he is going to give you that 17 to 22 every freaking time, and you're going to.
And I think that's what people don't think about is in these middle rounds, you're looking for consistency. You're not looking for someone who's going to blow it out every week or even like once or twice during the season where, like you're saying, he's not going to have a 40-point monster. But consistently 17 to 22 points a week out of your wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3, that's not bad.
Oh, I mean,
That's the stuff that wins leagues.
I still say, you want to chase ceilings even in the middle rounds, but a player like that does provide that consistency in these rounds is rare.
Yes.
That's more what it is. Usually, you have to pay that premium for somebody who puts up a relatively consistent and strong performance at the same time.
Right.
And a little bit later, back into your end of the middle rounds you were talking about, there is one other running back that I like a lot, and that's Ronald Jones. I'm a Rojo guy. Better real-life talent than fantasy player, sure, especially in PPR. He is not a great pass catcher. You could even say he's below average. I've seen a small amount of improvement, but it still keeps him from getting a bigger role from Bruce Arians, unfortunately.
Right.
It's just not his number one skill, but he's an incredible rusher. I think he's one of the better just pure running backs in the league. He produced. I have him at RB 21 this year, and he's fallen now, I think, to RB 34. In that one, I should have written down. So my apologies, listeners. He has slipped all the way to, let's see, 90
RB 34.
RB
Yep,
34,
RB 34.
Just wild to me.
That is wild.
Yeah, that's disrespectful. So
it is kind of.
Yeah, 89. Oh yeah, 91 overall. Here it is. Okay.
Herms is livid about this. I guarantee it.
Sermon, Carter. Oh yeah, the Fournette 3 spots ahead of him. Just, I'm 100% with Herms on this. You do not besmirch the name of Rojo.
No, and I besmirch the name of Rojo.
And I think the offense is just going to be such a juggernaut this season. I mean, he's just going to be situationally in prime high leverage positions. I mean, it's going to be more pass heavy offense, and he's probably not going to get much more volume than he got last year. But I think he's going to have a better chance at securing a larger amount of that goal line work. It was about a 50-50 split with Lenny last year. Rojo was much more efficient when you look at them. Right. He was just better. And so I think they're going to lean that way as they get, inside the 10, inside the 5 again. Not going to get much receiving work. Gio will get that third down work, but I think he's just going to destroy on first and second down, especially as Brady really clicks with that offense. I mean, there's going to be no stacked boxes. They have to respect Brady in that receiving core, so he's going to have plenty of daylight. I think it sets up for a career year for him. And he's going Brady. As late as ever.
Late as ever, and it's gotten worse because I was having to reach for him a little bit in some of my earlier drafts, and now all of a sudden it's like, I'm in the 15th round. What the hell is Rojo still doing here? This is weird. I had that happen in was it one of the multiverse leagues? No, couldn't have been. I don't know what league it was, but I was shocked.
Probably couldn't have waited too long in those leagues.
No, that's true. You guys, you probably would have been. Everybody else would have been taking them. But yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. That offense is primed to just blow up. They have all their starters returning, and most of the second string guys are back.
Unreal in salary cap era.
Unreal. They're the first team to do it.
Is stupid. I can't even. Executive of the year already just with that offseason, to be honest.
Absolutely.
That's such an unreal feat. So yeah, do not pass up on that value. That is too good. Get Rojo late. Yeah, like you said, I look back at a couple drafts earlier in the offseason. I think I reached for him in the 7th. Now it kind of makes me sick. I don't regret taking him there. I think that's still a decent value, but knowing today I could get him in the 9th or 10th. Ugh.
Yeah. Different time, man. It was a different time. It was wild.
It really is. You had to be there.
You had to be there.
So that's mid-round strategy. Focus on receivers. That's where you're going to get most of your best value. Get Dak and Deontay early in the 5th. Get Rojo in the 9th. Now, sleepers. This is not the most important thing to me, but it's something that people always want to know going into a draft. It feels like a cheat code if you can really just hit on one of these guys and get a RB2 or a wide receiver 2 in these rounds, or even, that diamond in the rough tight end that explodes onto the scene. For you, 10th round or later, and we'll say between 10th round and like 15th round ish, whatever your standard ESPN Yahoo League would go to, about 15 rounds. Who are some of your favorite late round targets? And in particular, that running back, wide receiver position, those flex spots.
So Darnell Mooney is going at the beginning of the
Should have known that.
10th round. He's wide receiver 50, 121 overall right now.
Wow.
Nyheim Hines is another one. RB 44. I love that value. I have a guy that you love that I'm not going to say because I completely 100% agree.
Oh, shit. I should have. Go. You know what? I'll come up. You deserve to say this one. No, please.
Okay,
please.
So he's my hometown boy, Philip Lindsay.
Yes.
He's going to be the RB1 in Houston. Like, just forget about it.
Yes, he is.
And then I have a tight end.
And he's free.
I have a tight end I'm big on. So if I'm not getting Waller, Kittle, or Kelsey, I'm waiting to get Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu, okay.
He's tight end 14, but he's 131st overall. So he's approaching that 11th round. And that's a steal, man, because Mac Jones is going to love him some Jonnu because he's going to get Mac Jones out of some jams when coverage is locked up because he likes to run those he does the stream routes, but he likes to run the little cross seams and the out and ins. And I know a lot of people think that's going to be Hunter Henry, but I'm telling you right now, Hunter Henry's going to be doing a whole lot of blocking and Jonnu Smith is going to be doing a whole lot of catching. And Jeff Bell, credit to Jeff Bell, got me on this train. I was somewhat on it until they signed Hunter Henry, but now I'm full bore, let's go, Jonnu Smith. And Baker Mayfield is the guy that you're getting in the 10th or later at quarterback. Just saying, if you want to wait on a quarterback and you're willing to be just a little risky with that quarterback position in a 1 QB league, I'm all for Baker Mayfield being your quarterback.
I think you talked about that on Collective Knowledge with Shane, if I recall.
I did.
Correctly.
You're going to kick me off. Yeah. You're going to kick me off the show, aren't you?
No, not at all. I don't agree, but I wouldn't say I don't agree. I would say I'm not that risky with taking, riding Baker as my sole QB in a 1 QB league. I don't think I would. I would take another chance.
Well, at that point, he could be your QB too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy. Mm-hmm. I mean, who I would say to take the shot on would be a lot more concerning to other people. Sam Darnold. So I mean, it's.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
He's another one though I don't ever pump too hard because there's just too much bias there. So it's not backed up by all pure facts or research to anything. It's pure feeling and love for the guy. I feel bad for him having been drafted by the Jets to begin with, and
right.
I just want it to happen so bad. I'm trying to speak it into existence.
I'm going to tell you, there were flashes of Sam Darnold in New York that were good. We saw it a few times, but Adam Gase is the devil. Adam Gase is the devil, man. He's a high school.
That's why those ghosts appeared.
Yes. Adam Gase was sending little demons to freak out Sam Darnold. I think Darnold's going to be markedly better in Carolina, and I think at the end of the year we're talking about, wow, we really slept on Darnold. That was stupid. I've said my piece twice. I wrote about him. Actually, 3 times. I wrote about him. I did a quick hit type video about him, and I put him in my receipts tweet thread that I think he's going to be. Yeah. So y'all know where I stand on Sam Darnold. When I get this shit right, let's talk, because I already nailed Mac Jones.
The Joe Brady factor is so big to me too.
Yes.
I can't speak highly enough of Joe Brady. You already know all this. Obviously, you've covered all this, but just every single aspect of the situation that Darnold is stepping into, along with the talent that I believe he has to begin with, just spells glory.
Dude, his running back is CMC, guys. Can we talk about that for a second? That makes a difference. That takes so much pressure off of him.
Frank Gore wasn't good enough for
Well, I
for
mean,
him to thrive?
Frank
I mean,
Gore is like second all time in rushing yards.
Sure. I mean,
Where's
but
CMC on that list?
38-year-old. 38. I'm a 49ers fan, so I love Frank Gore. Frank Gore's my boy. But I'm just saying.
Totally. So you didn't like my tweet yesterday, then, did you?
Well, which tweet? You tweet a lot, dude.
The Mac Jones Trey Lance one.
Oh, I missed that. If it's Mac Jones over Trey Lance, no, I didn't like it. I can already just tell you that right now.
I'm glad you missed it then.
No, if it's actually, see, now I gotta know. Now I gotta know. You gotta.
I made a lot of people.
But are you saying Mac Jones going to be better?
I think Mac Jones
or is better.
Yeah.
Well, he is better right now because he's actually ready to start. I don't think Trey is.
No, that was the gist of what I said was Mac Jones was the most pro-ready quarterback in this class. The reason we didn't see it is because we were too busy looking at other people. T-Law, Justin Fields, not necessarily Trey Lance because he was North Dakota State, right?
Right.
Play. Right. I feel like there's got to be a little bit of Shanahan in that front office. It is like, did we make a mistake in taking Trey Lance because we could have been free of Jimmy G's salary and had a guy who was ready to start week 1? Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense, but I don't.
They definitely regret it.
I don't think they regret it. I do think the thought has probably crossed Shanahan's mind at some point, mostly because Jones is more in the prototypical mold of the Shanahan quarterback.
Thank you. Thank you. People were arguing with me about that yesterday.
No, I mean, it's just factual. But I mean, me as a fan, I was thrilled to see him jump out of that comfort zone and be able to now progress his offense even further.
Sure. I totally get that.
So for me, I think with his brain, I mean, I think this is going to be a jack. But while I don't think Trey is ready now, you can see just endless talent, infinite talent dripping from this guy. I mean, he's got everything that he needs to have. He's just got to start to put together, get used to the game. I don't even really put it so much. I think it's more not being ready, not for lack of talent or having the ability to be ready. It's just the lack of experience, having only played one game in the last 2 years, really. So he's just got to get some more reps in. That's really all it is. And then he'll be good to go.
I hope he does well. I don't root against anybody. I promise. If you ever think I am, Twitterverse, I'm not rooting against anyone.
I never root against individuals, just teams. That's
fair.
Organizations.
Yep. Fantasy football has not helped me get over my hate for the Yankees. Jay Felicio.
If you don't, fuck the Yankees. That's all. And you are a Red Sox fan. So
that's true. Right. I am.
All right. Why not the Rockies? Come on.
We didn't have the Rockies until I was like 12 or 13, and I was already pretty ingrained in baseball. I am a Rockies fan, kind of.
I guess that counts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother show, man. Another whole show. I can't. Yeah, it's another.
Whatever.
Whole show.
I mean, good decision to stick with the Sox. I mean, Rockies are in a tough predicament and will be for a while.
Forever, probably for my entire lifetime.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Well, I guess not really sorry. You're a Boston fan.
Yep.
And so for me, well, you did take one of my late sleepers here, which was going to be Philip Lindsay. But again, Denver man, you needed to say that one.
My hometown boy.
And so the other one that I had, thought of beforehand, again, just sneaking into these earlier rounds, so maybe not that much of a sleeper, but Mike Williams. Now, the promise for Mike Williams does seem to have been unfulfilled year after year. Every year it's going to be Mike Williams' year, and there actually have been a couple good years that seem to have just been forgotten about. He has a 1,000-yard season. He has a 10-touchdown season. Injury riddled, within him at times, but we know the guy can play. So, as I mentioned earlier, I really try not to factor in injuries much going in, and even with somebody like Mike Williams, I'm not gonna go in expecting him to miss 6+ games here. I'm going in looking at it as he's going in with a quarterback, he's going to go into the best quarterback play he's ever had. Now, Herbert hasn't done what Phillip Rivers has done at other points in his career yet, but better than anything Phillip Rivers was as long as Mike Williams has been with the Chargers.
100%.
He's going with. He is going to be the number 2 target again, really, or 3 if you count Eckler as a target, because I mean he is really. It's going to be Keenan, it's going to be Eckler, then it's going to be Williams. He's going to be a big red zone target. I think him and Jared Cook are really going to dominate most of those red zone looks. And obviously, Keenan with the separation will still get his because he's freaking Keenan Allen.
Right.
But I mean, as far as those just big body targets, that's where that's going to come from. I think he's going to take those deep shots to him again this year, and we know what Williams can do with those. So I am thrilled about his prospects this year. And I wanted to say for my running back, Sonny Michel, but that feels like cheating. It just seems like his ADP hasn't really caught up to the recent news.
That's probably fair.
New, so it's probably artificially low. But if he's still, being forgotten about because he is buried here on these ADPs and you're playing in a league with, not the most hardcore people, maybe not doing the research you're doing here right now, do remember Sonny Michel was traded to the Rams. And while
he's still Sonny Michel,
he is still Sonny Michel. And Darrell Henderson is going to be the lead back, I believe. He's going to get some high leverage touches, Sonny Michel is, I believe. I think he will see some of that goal line work, and he's just going to get, I think, just enough touches to be useful, particularly at a 10th round plus price. Again, he's not guaranteed high volume, but he's guaranteed enough volume that if you do have to throw him in there as a buy desperation or a flex play, that's not going to crush you. In PPR, you can probably count on 6-7+ points and not have to totally gamble on some bunk tight end or something like that.
Right. Well, I think Michel's going to be very touchdown dependent because I think that Matthew Stafford's going to throw for over 5,000 yards, and there's a chance he breaks the single season touchdown passing record this season. I don't think that's a hot take.
So they're just going full Pittsburgh last year? All right.
Yep. I don't see why not. I mean, Matthew Stafford's been waiting for this opportunity to be on a team with these kinds of weapons. He's never had this before. So, yeah. I think Michel gets some goal line work for sure.
I don't know. Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, not exactly bums.
Well, Calvin Johnson wasn't.
Think Golden Tate sucked? Marvin Jones sucks?
I've never been a Golden Tate fan. I didn't think he was as reliable as everybody made him out to be.
I think it's better than Cooper Kupp.
You know what? I actually would agree with you on that, but not better than Robert Woods or Tyler Higbee.
Better Higbee.
I like
Robert
Higbee.
Woods. No, we'll have mad respect for Woods. The only guy I'm going to say that he's played with better than Bobby is Johnson, of course.
Yeah,
but otherwise, no. Yeah.
Don't forget about Van Jefferson, and if Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy, which that's a huge if. But if
he's one of the guys I feel comfortable baking in that injury risk. Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, just don't be surprised if we see Matthew Stafford have maybe like all-time great season this year in LA.
And best ball love Deshaun as a depending on how deep you're drafting in your best ball league.
Yeah,
late round guy. I mean, he'll definitely get. I think he's definitely going to have probably 1 or 2 of those just classic 3-catch. 90 yards, 2 touchdown games. I mean,
yep. Yeah, you can bank on one of the 2 of those this year. Yep.
Certainly. Stafford will take the shots. McVay will let him.
Oh, yeah. Well, Stafford's a vet. I mean, he's a vet like McVay's never had. So
that's true, too. It'll be curious to see how aggressive he gets now that he's working with that kind of talent over Jared Goff.
I hope he gets really aggressive. I'm looking forward to that offense with Stafford.
It'll be curious. Yeah, I hope he's ultra aggressive against the 49ers and it blows up in his face. That's what I hope.
Well, of course. That makes sense.
I can't help it. I do think the Rams are going to be really good. I just have to make sure that any Rams love on the show gets slightly tempered at the end, just to know who's still the best team in the West. And it is not LA.
The Seahawks?
You're good, you. I mean, I know everybody thinks Jimmy G blows. I mean, he still took a team to the Super Bowl. Or he didn't take it, but he helped lead that team.
He did, and that's fair.
I mean, as much as he's not it, he's still good enough.
Yep. And that is fair.
Basically, this team with a healthy Jimmy is a Super Bowl team. And that rings true this year to me as well. So
we'll see.
Yeah.
That's why they play the games.
That is why they play the games. God, I can't wait. I just want my team to stay healthy. I went into a season with real expectations for the first time in almost 10 years last year. And they were just immediately taken away. But, by week 2, everything was gone. So,
everybody was on IR, had opted out.
It's just the worst. So just stay mostly healthy, and we're right there with the best of the NFC, which is pretty weak after the top 4 teams, in my opinion.
It really is. It really is. The AFC is really tough this year, though.
The AFC is strong, yes.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you got Tampa Bay.
You got Tampa Bay, Green Bay, LA, and San Francisco. After those 4, I mean, then Seattle is a 5th. I think that's a pretty clear top 5 to me.
Yeah. You don't think the Bears could get there with Fields?
Not as far as looking at it as true Super Bowl contenders. I still no rookies ever won the Super Bowl, and I don't think this is going to be the year it happens either.
Unless Mac Jones does it.
I would be floored. Although I guess if anybody could do it with a rookie, it'd probably be Bill. I don't know.
That's the reason I think that it's possible is because it's Bill Belichick.
I would. That might make me quit football. If Bill Belichick can just roll in some 15th pick overall, dad bod, Alabama QB rookie, and fucking win a Super Bowl in the first year, it's done. All these years, by the way, I thought I hated Tom Brady. I really did. And there are still things that annoyed me about him over the years. This last year, I've realized I do not hate Tom Brady. Tom Brady's hilarious. I just hate the Patriots, and I guess I really hate Bill. Bill is really the driving factor behind all that. I wasn't able to put it together when they were together, but that would make me sick.
Have you ever listened to the Armchair Expert podcast?
I can't say I have.
So do you know who Dax Shepard is?
Yes.
Okay, so it's his podcast.
Oh, okay.
And he brings in like different celebrities for every week that he does. I mean, he's had like Edward Norton. I think he did or didn't get Brad Pitt, but like just this list of celebrities and like musicians, and I'm sure he probably could. One of them, right before the season started, was Tom Brady. And Jen and I listened to it on our way back home from a road trip. I wasn't the biggest Brady fan. Didn't care for him, didn't like his demeanor, didn't like his attitude, didn't like the Patriots, didn't like Bill Belichick. At the end of that episode, is like, I get why he is who he is, and I could not love him anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
I would just say, check it out. I mean, check out the whole podcast.
I'm a big Dax fan. Just hard to squeeze in more and more podcasts. There's so much.
Right?
God.
Right. So much.
He really is kind of done a 180 public perception wise, I think, for a lot of people. I think you and I are not alone in this with kind of gotten to see the actual Tom Brady, not the
fun Tom
Belichick
Brady.
Robo Brady. Yeah.
Right.
And it's so I mean, that stupid Verizon commercial he does with Gronk gets me every time. It's hilarious. He's a funny guy.
Yes, he is. Who knew?
I honestly never would have guessed. Truly never would have guessed.
Me either.
He just struck me as the kind of guy who, went home, ate his avocado ice cream, read some playbook until he went to bed, and like kind of patted his kid on the head as he walked down the hall. Like not even like a hello, good night, just hey.
That's hilarious.
So that'll wrap up our draft discussion. We've kind of taken you through the early rounds, middle rounds, late rounds. So I guess before we end that in particular, is there any final advice you'd like to give anybody going into their drafts? Any one thing they need to know as they head into their home or office league drafts this weekend?
So we talked a lot about like where we take players and like what positions we're looking at. In all honesty, that varies for me depending on the league, my league mates, the scoring format, and then really how the first couple of rounds of a draft go. I did 0 RB once this offseason in one startup, and it felt gross, and I'll never do it again. Intentionally, I'll never go into a draft saying I'm doing 0 RB. But if that's the way the board shakes out and that's the way the people around me are drafting, that becomes advantageous to me where I have to go running back or I have to go other positions early because people are sleeping on running backs, I'll do it. This all to say, be fluid. Don't go in with a rigid draft strategy because when you do that, you pigeonhole yourself and you end up with a team you don't like. Be fluid, pay attention to what your league mates are doing, see how they're drafting, and do what feels best for you in the format with the scoring and what's going on around you. And I be fluid. And that's my biggest advice. Be fluid in your drafts. That'll help you win.
Absolutely. Definitely be fluid. I think actually something really important right there, because a lot of common draft advice is, hit running back early and often, position scarcity, blah, blah. Okay, if you're in a league and the entire first round is running backs, and say you got picked 9, and even the first, it's been 15 straight running backs to start the draft, please take Devontae Adams, take Travis Kelce when it comes back to you on turn. Do not take running back 16 over wide receiver or tight end 1.
Yep, you can make that value up at other positions.
You absolutely can at that stage. So don't be afraid to end a run like that.
Right. And there are guys out there that you can get in later rounds that are going to provide as much or more value as some of these guys who are being taken in the first and second rounds. People just aren't telling you that. It will happen. It happens every year. Rondre Stevenson. There are people out there you can get late that there's a chance. I have no problem with streaming a position if I don't like the way a draft's going. I have zero issue with that.
No. I think it's a viable almost every position.
Yep.
Well, even every position. I mean, tight end and quarterback probably one to, in a single QB league, the easiest to do that with, but definitely can be done at running back and wide receiver as well.
Yep.
And so actually, I'm going to leave it right there too. I think that is really important. Just be fluid, be water, just let the draft come to you. Don't force it.
Right.
So Nate, before we go, I want to give you the floor. Thank you for coming on. And since you've put up, this time with me, just tolerated me, now you have a chance to really say your own independent full piece, please.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It was a joy. I did not tolerate you. I enjoyed being here. It was great. So, I've got In Between Media at IBT_media. Week 1, something that has been 8 years in the making is going to be dropping. Podcast with my wife, Jen, and I. You all know her at Jen Polvogt on Twitter. 32 and 32. We're going to hit all 32 teams in 32 minutes. The idea being it will come to you on Saturday. It should be coming to your ears on Saturday, so you can get your lineup set, have time to take care of it, put it out there. It was her idea. I just want to make sure everyone knows that this was not my idea. I'm just piggybacking on my amazing wife, who's way cooler than me. And other than that, don't be a dick. We're kind of, regardless of this space, at the grocery store, at a restaurant, in traffic, this life's hard enough, man. We're all in this together. Don't be a dick.
I love that. That might be the best message that's come out of the boardroom so far. And we're in episode 10? Yeah. People, please listen to Nate. Don't be a dick.
It's not as hard as you think it is. I promise. I used to be a dick, and I learned to not be a dick.
I can assure you it is, in fact, much easier to not be a dick than to be a dick. It takes active effort to be a dick. It doesn't to not be one.
Right.
And as this is the boardroom, we have a little final business to conduct. We got to get into, real business. First one being Prize Picks. If you have not signed up yet, please go to prizepicks.com. Please join with code collective, KOLLECTIV. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Most daily sites, it's $25. So really maximize that. Get $100 free to play with. And go to Prize Picks. Now, it's to me, I don't know if you've done it yet, Nate. I enjoy it. If you haven't, check it out. I love DFS. You'll find me on most of these sites throughout the season. But what I like about this one is it's just picks on over-unders. It's either, it's generally statistical props for players or even just fantasy points. Pay attention to the scoring settings that they use to calculate said fantasy points. You can make from 3 times to 10 times your money. So if you get 2 over-unders right, it's essentially parlay props to a degree. So get 2 right, 3 times your money back, 3 right, 5 times. If you get 4 of them right, 10 times your money. And I enjoy it mostly because, unlike most of the other DFS sites, no sharks. You're just going against the prop numbers. It's more akin to that world. And without having to risk anything crazy. It's just pick a couple of over-unders, do or don't. Much more variety than you would find in a sports book in terms of what's offered on those props. So it's appealing to me in that way. Just pick some over-unders. It's simple. It's easy. And again, no sharks to come in with their 100 entries and just snuff you out. Because that happens to me all the time on these other sites.
You and me both, man.
It is just crushing. And final plugs here is just about collective content as a whole. We're heading into the season. This is draft weekend, and we have just a ton of resources available for you. We have the Fantasy Boardroom here. We have our flagship, which is Fantasy Nightcap, hosted by Fox and Shane Barrett.
Which I have still not been on.
Uh-oh, guys. You know what? I'm been friends with these guys forever. Fox has been I've been knowing this guy for 10 years. I only finally got on a couple weeks ago, and he wasn't even on the episode. So that's all right. In fairness, he was in the middle of a move. It makes sense, but still, just the point. We also have Brothers of Dynasty podcast, a new addition to the network we talked about at the beginning of the show. Last week, we debuted Collective Cave for all of your NFL betting and gambling advice needs. Episode 2 was launched this Monday. Bugsy and Papa are the gentlemen conducting that show. Go listen. First episode was team preseason props, so division winners, team win-loss. Episode from Monday is player props, so award winners and player statistical props. A lot of good advice in there. Please go give that a listen if you are a bettor. And, of course, the Collective website, which is only going to improve as we go throughout the season. Nate's Dynasty Sweet Spot series, currently the featured article. That is live. Please go read it. It is just... It's a little reminiscent of your writing style for IBT because it you blend a little bit of personal life into that article, and it was, you can connect to it. You can relate to it. It's a style of writing that comes across very personal. Like it's really being talked to. You're talking with that person as opposed to just reading some journal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I mean that legitimately. I like that style of writing. I do a lot of reading, so I guess I tend to get a little pickier. Or I've gotten pickier as I've gone along and really have really set preferences and what I like. I'll read all kinds of things still, but my preferences really, stand out at this point. So we got that. We're going to have redraft, dynasty, DFS, best ball, Devi content. And that's going to come from me. That's going to come from Shane Barrett. That's going to come from Nick Sarnelli. That's going to come from Fox. It's going to come from Wardy. And it's going to come from Nate. So just keep an eye, as the season kicks off too, there's going to be a variety of weeklies, your typical start sits, your waiver wire advice, we'll make sure all the basics are covered, but we're going to have so much more for you on top of that. So please be checking in regularly. All of us will be updating you regularly via the website, via Twitter and Facebook, and whatever social media you prefer. We'll be pumping this out, so just be ready. We also have our ADP tool there, connected to Sleeper's ADP. A lot of sharp people playing on Sleeper, so you can glean a bit of info from there beyond just consensus rankings. And there's just so much more to come. We can't wait. The season's almost here. Nate, we're almost to week 1. Football is
Thank
almost
God.
here. And we can stop. As much as I love doing this, as much as I love talking rankings and love drafting and draft prep and blah, 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 I'm ready to just have the games played. I am ready to start winning. I'm ready to start talking crap to my league mates. I'm ready to just start. Now, we said don't be a dick earlier. It's okay to kind of be a dick to your league when in the spirit of competition.
Different.
Just
That's
want to throw that out
different.
there. Throw that advice in real life, in your actual life, and even most of outside of your league chats. Don't be a dick. We'll put it that way. League chats exempt. And on that message, thank you again, Nate. Really appreciate you coming into the boardroom, sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Of course, anytime. We'll have you back.
All right.
But for now, this meeting of the Fantasy Board